This clip says Tucker apologizes to Nick for calling him gay and says he doesn't understand why no one is getting married.
So what are the other factors that prevent, I'm sorry I called you gay, by the way, but I'm always, I think I'm just too old or something. I'm like, what? Why is anyone married? You tell me, why aren't people married?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's the women. The women are extremely liberal. No one talks about that. Increasingly they do, especially after the last election. There's a 45-point difference between men and women. The men are extremely conservative, increasingly. The women are extremely liberal.
What are they liberal on? What issues? Like, what does that mean, liberal?
Oh, they're very feminist.
Like, actually?
Extremely feminist, yes.
They don't believe that, do they?
I think they do.
Really?
Absolutely,
How
yes.
could you believe that?
I think
gender roles are a construct, that none of this is inborn? Like, you'd have to be an idiot to think that.
they like the idea of it. They like because of course I think all women naturally want strong men.
Of course, obviously.
They naturally want a Chad. They want like a tall, buff guy. But I think they like the idea of none of them want to work either. None of them actually want to work.
No, that's what I'm saying. Of course.
Right.
It's obviously true. It's always been true. Work outside the home.
Right.
They don't have enough work at home. There's a lot to do. But no, I completely agree. So that's why I question, like, they're feminists in what sense?
Yes. And, they like these vague appeals to equality. We want a chance to work and we want respect. And, ultimately, I think the whole political system is just based around women never being accountable for any of their choices. Ultimately, that seems to be that's what abortion is.
Yeah, of course.
Because 99% of abortions are elective. So they say it's an unplanned pregnancy. You had sex out of wedlock with someone you didn't intend to have kids with. So now we have to kill the kids in the womb. And, these no-fault divorce laws. These women get married to guys maybe they never intend to stay with. And then when they're out, they're done. And they want child support and they want half the stuff. And I think a lot of men are looking at women and they're very liberal. They're overweight. They have a very high estimation of themselves. I think that people call it hoflation.
Hoflation?
Yes, their sense of their own looks and sexual value is very inflated. And so a lot of people are looking at these like frumpy, obnoxious, loudmouth, liberal women who are also very promiscuous and saying this is not actually appealing at all. And I don't want to start a family with a person
Sounds
like
awful.
this. Yeah, it is.
But if you believe in the patriarchy, as I fervently do, because it's just reality, we didn't choose the system. We were born into a system that is part of nature, can't get out of it. So if you believe that that's true, which it is, then you think that men should lead. And if it's going to be better, men should make it better because that's their job.
Right.
So you don't want to give them a pass, do you? It'd be like it's all the girls suck, so...
I don't even blame it on the women because I think that it's the incentive structures. Women are allowed to do this by the legal system, by kind of social norms. Technology is a big part of it. The attention that is available to women. Women go on Instagram and they get attention from thousands of men. So it's the incentives. But I would say that, because I hear this all the time, people say, well, the men need to step up and be better and lead the women. Easier said than done.
I agree. Of course, I agree with that.
They're at war with the system, and not even just the system, but also society.
Okay, so this was a good conversation between Tucker and Nick. I say this a lot, guys, but there's a lot to unpack. So Nick is basically Tucker asked Nick, why is he not married? And then Nick began to blame feminism, liberal ideology, etc. for the reason that the marriage rate is lower and people are having more kids out of wedlock. Okay, so Nick brought up some valid points, but I also think he misrepresented some things. Now, in terms of feminism, I'm a male. There are many things that even with women who claim to be feminists, there are many things from chivalry in the old days that women want to keep. So I don't even, like as Tucker said, he made a joke about how women don't really want to work. They definitely don't want to spend their own money, whether they work or not. So I think that there's some truth to the things that both of them are saying. And what they're saying is that the gender roles are now trying to be presented to society as if men and women are equal and the same. I believe that men and women are equal from the standpoint that we all should be allowed to work and we should all have independence. But inside of the family structure, for most 99% of Americans, we do have the prior system that we've always had for generations and millennia, millions and hundreds of thousands of years. I think that what we should have is equal opportunity for everyone. And I think we do have equal opportunity for men and women. And I think the careers people choose speak to what they want out of life. So I noticed in college that a lot of men were pushing more for the science, the business, the type of jobs that allow more income. So when people talk about now how there's an income gap between men and women, I like to point out, well, look, the men are doing jobs that allow them to get paid more than women. So because these men are doing these jobs, they have a higher salary and earn more money than women. So the playing field is fair, but the choices that men are making allow them to have more money. What I also will say, though, is that I study, not study, but I've looked into things like IQ. So you have a higher portion of men who do things like science, math, start businesses, entrepreneurial, etc. So they make more money. And there's a higher percentage of there's a higher percentage of men with IQs over 120 than women, and there's a higher percent per capita, and there's a higher percentage of men with IQs over 140 than women. So those are high IQs, and they allow you to do jobs that bring in a lot of income. On the reverse, though, because people like Nick don't often bring this up, there's a higher percentage of men who commit crimes, and there are a higher percentage of men who have IQs below 80 and below 60 than women. So what you have is a situation where women are in the middle. So some women will get what they want, where they have a man who's earning a lot of income and they can provide more in the traditional role that Nick and Tucker are talking about. But because they have a percentage of women who are smarter than men and who are able to do jobs where you earn more income than men, if you have a level playing field, society will have a situation where there are situations where women make more than men. Now, this becomes a huge problem because in the dating field, what you have is it'll work out for the men who make money. They can just date the women who make less than them. But one thing that Nick alluded to was he said that women have a high self-worth, which is not necessarily bad because I know people talk about women, they judge them on their looks. So I can understand women creating in their mind like this false sense of beauty, because when you put yourself online, when you have a lot of people saying negative things about you, women are emotional, not to go into stereotypes, but it could be a lot on their self-esteem and self-worth if some of the women who are not as attractive are being told things about themselves and it's hard for them to, deal with it. Now, what I'm trying to bring up about the women who are in the middle, who make more money than the men who are not as intelligent, so they're doing jobs like, not making fun of people, because I think being productive and having integrity is the key, and I'm about to speak for these men. You might have men who are working in construction. You might have men who are working as janitors. You might have men who are working as correctional officers, etc. These men are working, but they're making less money than some of these women who are working in managerial or executive positions. So one of the problems that I see is that if you have women who claim to be feminists and they want equality, they have to be willing to talk to and date men who make less than them. But most women don't want to do that. So what we do have in a problem societal wise that I do understand what Nick and Tucker are talking about is, if we're going to have the situation that women are wanting, the women are going to have some give and take and not expect the things that they expected from chivalry. Now, another thing that Nick and Tucker are talking about is that they're saying that we have abortions and we have women being promiscuous because of liberal ideology. This is true, but I would like to say that I'm fair to men and women. I don't think that society was better when you had women supposedly not having sex, but women always were having sex. They were just married and cheating on their husbands and no one was finding out about it. I don't think that it's a better society if women are having less sex, but men who are judged by how many sexual partners they have are running around having sex. I would say that we have to be fair to men and women. If we're going to say the women shouldn't have sex, we're going to have to say that the men should also be virgins and not have as much sex. And that's not going to go well for the men. So I just wanted to highlight that double standard. I don't think it's fair. I think the men and women should be judged the same. I don't care if men agree with me. When I'm in the barbershop, majority of the men don't agree with me, but facts are facts. And like you guys know, I try to be objective with everyone. Now, in terms of, he said you can get divorced for no reason. I'll say this. There was a time when women who were working had to have their bank account under their husband. So you had women working, but they couldn't even create their own bank accounts. They had to either be with their father or their husband. And this was way into the 1970s. I think it's unfair that you have a working adult who can't start their own bank account. I think it was wrong that they had a time when men were beating women, but the women couldn't leave and get out of the abusive situation because the government wouldn't allow them to do anything without the signature of their husband. So to me, this is how things go. There's a pendulum shift. There was a huge shift in women's rights because women weren't being able to control certain things with their body. They weren't being able to control their bank accounts, etc., because the society was too patriarchal. Now, some may say now the society is a little bit too feminist because you're allowing women to, once they have a baby, they're guaranteed money from the government or they're guaranteed money from their partner. So just like poor people can abuse the welfare state, women can also be mischievous and up to no good and misuse the current system that's kind of protective of women. So I would agree that as a society, we need to just be, as I ask people in the political world, to be fair to Democrats and Republicans, I think in terms of genders, we need to start being fair to the marriage structure and the home structure. Anybody with common sense would know if you have two parents in the household, that is going to fare better for everyone. It allows the men and women to have support in raising the children. It allows the children to have a better economic situation, and it allows people to save. Because if a man has a house and a woman has a house and they're separate, and the man has to pay for his house and he has to pay for the woman's house because she needs child support, it's not allowing that man to save and have the best financial situation he can have. So there's a lot of truth that comes out of the things that the conservatives say in terms of they're trying to push marriage, they're trying to push two-parent households. These things would help society, period. My only statement is that it's okay when there's a single mother. It's okay when there's a broken home because it depends on that particular family. We must also remember that when we had black men in the homes, black men were still committing a higher rate of violent crime than white men, even those who had two-parent households, because everything is not based upon just your race. It's not based upon just your socioeconomics. It's not just based upon your marital status. It's not just based upon your religion. It's not just based upon your morals. All of these things work in conjunction with one another. So I believe that when someone says something like Nick or Tucker that could be helpful, we should take it, but we should also not take it completely at face value, because when we don't think critically, we go into these beliefs that there's only one way, there's only one correct answer, and that's just not true. To each his own, but we should all at least look at the data and consider the points that Tucker and Nick are making that make sense and that are valid. If you like this video, please smash the like button, comment, and subscribe. New shows airing Monday through Thursday.